Hello, this is Jim again. Welcome to the third in our series on center of gravity and how it affects our airplanes. Today we're looking in particular to low-wing aircraft, which is significantly different in how you deal with things than the high-wing that we looked at earlier. Naturally, with one like this, we're going to balance it upside down to make it nice and steady and allow us to be able to use it on the rack. But we've done all of that with us now, and so I'm basically just reporting to you on progress to date. Now, we've had our maiden flight and another one following that, and we've now made some adjustments and getting ready for the next set of test flights. But hey, it's blowing a bit of a gale out there today, so we'll leave that for another time, and we'll give you an update when that's done. But what I want to tell you about today is just what we've gone through to get to this point, and the decisions that we've made and why we've made them. Well, as we started the project out, one of the first things that we did was to work out the geometrical center of the wing, and that's related to our previous videos on locating the center of lift. And as you see the little arrow there, that's what we reckon the center was, and in particular that defines the chord that we want to use to get our 25%. So we worked that out on that chord, and we came up with a range of 25% to 33%, and then we've had various places along the way that we've actually balanced it at. Now, there are some interesting observations here though with what we did in terms of balancing. First off, we got those strips of paper that we use to fold and create the 25% and 33%. And you'll note that the 33% on all of those is right down the spar line of the wing, or what I call the spar line. I assume there's a spar under there. It's sort of on the top of the fat part of the wing. 33% is consistent all the way along there with each profile that we use, given that we measured from the string at the front, which is what we reckon is an approximation of the average position of that wing. So the bulk of the wing is pretty similar, but here at the root of the wing you got some dramatic differences. And of course those differences are where we came into a bit of a problem as we looked at the 85 millimeters plus or minus 3 that the manual said that we were to balance it at, and the various positions that we sort of figured out of our calculations where it would balance at, which is much farther back. So we ended up having a first flight, and as we did that, we had it balanced around this middle point that you see there. But we did find with that setup that in terms of the elevator, we ended up having it trimmed in normal flight of just a little bit down, probably something like that, you know. So we figured, well, hey, we're actually a little bit nose light, so we're making adjustments, and we'll try this next time around that 25% mark. But it'll still be significantly less than the 85 millimeters that it was reckoned in the book. So we'll report on that as we get that done. So in the meantime, a progress report. Well, we started out by trying to balance it right in the middle. And as we put it on the stand with the plane with no battery inside it, we found that it was actually slightly nose heavy. And so we thought, well, hey, if we're going to balance in the middle, we need to have the battery back of the where we reckon the center of gravity ought to end up being. And as we went to do that, we found that we had a problem in terms of all of the wires and stuff that were back here. Now keep in mind this plane is made to be using a battery tray, which slides up in there. And it'd be real nice if you could just simply have the entire battery up there in the nose. But if the center of gravity is going to be someplace around here, and if it's already nose heavy with it being someplace around here, that means the battery is going to be back in here. So we had some huge issues. Part of the issue had to do with the battery being a different size than what the manufacturers had figured on. obviously Spectrum is, EFlite and all of that. So they have a nice squat battery that is very short, and we had a variety of ACE batteries that were tall. So when we put those in there, we could get them in on the tray, but then they'd stick in way up high here. And with this cowl having a bit that goes down inside, well, it was very difficult to, the battery just wouldn't fit. So we end up having to modify the cowl and remove a bunch of material to be able to get the battery in there to where we could have the battery here, and also for the ACE battery, that meant without the tray, to have it in there. So with the ACE battery, we started out with the back of the battery here at this 28% mark. That's indicating 28% back from the leading edge to where that was balanced. We had our test flight there. Had that situation with the elevator having to be slightly down when it was trimmed, which indicates that it wasn't quite heavy enough on the nose. So then we did a bunch of other checking, and we looked at the extremes. So with the battery all the way into the nose, up in here, it was a little bit above 25%. Well, significantly above 25%. With it, the battery back here, we were at 25%. So since this physically is as far back as we can go, and it's really too far back, and that's the 25% mark, we reckon that someplace between those is where we'll end up as we do further flight tests. We then got thinking about our Spectrum battery and thinking, okay, that's actually skinnier, so maybe we can get that in there. So yes, we were able to do that, and we found that we could strap it onto the battery tray to give it some support up front, because the battery is too wide to fit between the little guides for the tray up there. But by putting it partially on the tray and having the tray partially inserted in there, with the back of the battery here, the plane is balanced at 25%. And we can't really put it too much different than that. It would just be very small variations you might be able to make. It was really tight being able to get the cowl on, but we were eventually able to do that. So that'll be something that we test as well. So in thinking about issues, the first one had to do the battery placement, and we had to carve out a fair bit of foam out of this in order to do that. To secure the battery, I wanted to have some Velcro in there, and there was gaps in front and behind of that plywood piece there. So I made some small blocks of foam and I glued in there to where I could have Velcro over all of that to keep the battery in nice and snug. So with the ACE battery, it's Velcro down to there, and then the cowl is pressed onto the top of it. Being concerned about the possibility of the canopy coming off, I then put in a wooden dowel back here that I drilled a hole into, and drilled a corresponding hole in the back of the canopy, and I've just run a screw through there to hold that down. So you've got the front of the canopy being fixed with the little thing there, and you got the back not just dependent upon that magnet, but with a screw that goes in there. So we had that bit. Then I had an issue with the elevator that at full deflection it would be about there, and when we had it trimmed with it slightly down, then full up ended up, in there someplace, just barely up, which is a real problem in terms of ground handling. We nosed it over a couple of times, I guess, once on a landing and once trying to take off. Anyway, what I did is I removed the tail planes, I cut off the elevator, and then put in CA hinges in there, although instead of using the Zap type glue, I've used the Gorilla Glue, which is a little bit tricky as far as it tends to come out a bit, so I have to clean it up and all of that. But ended up with a real nice situation where we now have a nice high elevator, good travel, everything that we might need. So that's all good. Part of the balance thing, I just put a little screw under there. That's probably not enough to make any significant difference, but anyway, it was something that I did. So that's where we're at with it. And next time we'll give you a progress report on how the second flight goes. That's it all in a nutshell. But if you'd like to see some of the detail on the work that I did with this, I'm also going to add another video on that shows me going actually through some of the processes that I did on this plane. So have a look at that. And again, if you're finding our videos helpful, please subscribe. It'd be great to have you on board. Have a great day.